Welcome to Q&A Tuesday. Today I have a question that I think is really important, and I get asked this question a lot. I'm wondering what your criteria is for books I shouldn't read to my children. So what we're going to talk about for a minute today is what to look for in a book that will help you know whether or not that's going to be a book that's going to build character. And the example that I have with me is a little book that we found at our library. My daughter brought it over to me to read to her, and it's a great example of what not to read, because it's a book that will actually, if this kind of book were read over and over and over again, it could damage character. So it's a Marvel book, Spider-Man and Friends, and it's called Hulk's Big Mess. So the storyline goes that Hulk is at home, he's a kid, and he's supposed to clean up his room before his parents get home, and so he's panicking. It's an absolute mess. So he roars, and there's this big dust, and then he starts vacuuming up everything that he's blown with his superpower. And then, after he's done that, it says, "No time to put away all his toys. Swoosh, up went the bed. No one will check underneath there." And then the story proceeds. Next, it was time to vacuum the carpet. It's great being a superhero. And then you see him lounging in his chair in his room with a big smile on his face, and you can't see all the stuff under the bed, the blankets hanging down to kind of cover it, and it says there, Hulk's room was nice and clean again. He put away his mom's vacuum cleaner. He wouldn't need that for another year. So whoever wrote this thought it was kind of cute and clever and funny, and what they probably thought was something along the lines of, this is what kids really do. The problem is, that's not what kids should do, so it's not a book that's going to build character. So the number one most important thing that I think you need to look for every single time when reading anything with your children is what's being modeled and are not natural consequences in place. So if you were at Hulk's house and you were his mom, this wouldn't be the end of the story for you. Mom would come home, she would see the room, and if she's anything like me, she would actually look under the bed, she would see that there were toys under the bed, and she would make Hulk finish the room. And if he'd done it before and he'd been told that that wasn't okay, he would have an additional consequence for not cleaning his room properly and with excellence. So what you have is a book where a superhero who is a child's model, someone that the child wants to be like, who engages in a behavior, who does something that's actually not okay. It's not legitimate to cut corners. If you continue to cut corners and see, oh, what can I get away with? Can I cheat on my tests? Can I get by with, clocking in at the wrong times at work or whatever it is? When you build a character based on cutting corners and trying to get away with whatever you can get away with, that's a recipe for an unhappy life. And so there are many other books that you can consider there are many other stories and characters where characters behave badly. That's fine when characters in books make bad choices. It's okay that Hulk put the toys under the bed. The problem is that the child or the adult doesn't get to read what would happen in real life if they engaged in that behavior consistently. We just finished reading Pinocchio, and one of my very favorite things about that book is that at the end of the book, most of the major characters come back into the story. Pinocchio runs into them again, and what Pinocchio gets to find out is that they've had really bad consequences for their really bad behavior. And that's perfect. That's what you want to have modeled. You need to have a story that's long enough that either the character feels guilt, or they doubt themselves, or they have a decrease in self-confidence, or they lose friends, or they get in trouble, in some other way, have some kind of consequence. Look for all the types of real natural consequences that happen in the real world. If they have a certain behavior that they repeat over and over and over again, then where do they wind up? And when the story leaves you hanging, when it doesn't give you some resolution about what's going to really happen in the real world, then it could potentially be damaging character. Not just that one book, but if those kinds of books were read over and over again, it is an opportunity, and there have been books that I have read with my children that have not exemplified natural consequences. And if you're just aware of this idea, not to either not read books that don't show natural consequences or to discuss it. We've had some marvelous discussions about, now, what would have happened in the real world? Is this really true, you know? And what do you see happening around you to your friends that do this kind of thing? Or what would happen at our house if you did this kind of thing? And that's what happened when we read the Hulk book. I read it to my two youngest, and then we had a nice conversation about what did he do wrong and what's going to happen when his mom comes home. Well, that's really valuable, so you can fill in those holes, but then try to stay in more whole books that actually demonstrate those natural consequences for you so your children can build character as they read about characters that are human like them and make mistakes, but fix them so that they'll want to model their lives after true heroes who better themselves over time. So again, look for the natural consequences and look for what the characters are inspiring you to do and inspiring your children to do, because that is a tremendous key to knowing what books to read and what books not to read, and how to build character through classics. If this information was helpful to you, please pass it on to a friend and put it up on your Facebook or your Twitter or your Pinterest or whatever you love to do. Please like us on Facebook. You could also become a subscriber on our YouTube channel if you'd like. Join our email list where you'll get the free article From Opinions to Principles. And you can also send us in your questions. We'd love to hear from you what questions you have about building character through the classics, and we'll look through those and keep answering a question every Tuesday. So thanks for joining me, and we'll see you next week.